What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And Bitcoin is absolutely dumping, and I know a lot of people are panicking, so I wanted to drop this urgent market update and give you guys my thoughts on this price action, where I think we're headed next. Are we about to drop down into the 80,000s? Are we going to get a bounce from these local levels of support that we're approaching right now? I'm going to break it all down in today's video. Now, if you guys have been watching my live streams, you will know we have seen some warning signs on Market Cypher B, such as the higher time frame money flow continuing down. We know the money flow very rarely lies, and here we are just seeing that starting to play out. Now, I am still short from about $102,000, and it did take a lot of patience as we went sideways for about 2 weeks, but it is now finally continuing to play out here. So I'm going to break down all the levels for you guys, hopefully give you some peace of mind, or at least give you a heads up on what levels we have underneath us, update you guys on my plans here and how I'm trading this market. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the charts. Let's get into it. So guys, here we are on the Bitcoin chart, and you can see here we are getting this nice drop to the downside. Now, just to give a little bit of context here, guys, we did get a rip up towards our value area high where we got a nice rejection on our weekly level, and I am still holding my short position from the top here at about 102K in anticipation of getting stuck underneath this point of control. And we know, guys, once you get underneath that point of control, if you cannot reclaim it, which obviously we did have a ton of trouble doing, not only once, not twice, 3 times, 4, 5, 6, 7 times we tried to get above this point of control before getting slammed right back to the downside. And we know if we cannot reclaim that point of control, the next likely place for price to go is to work its way down towards that value area low, which right now is sitting at about $92,000. Now, as we looked at Market Cypher B for the past couple of weeks on the live streams, you will know that we have had our money flow on the daily continuing to drop into the red, which gives us that anticipation of a continuation to the downside, especially when you're getting stuck underneath that POC. Now, although I have been pretty neutral here inside this choppy price action, as there were not a lot of clear signs other than this higher time frame money flow, but if we were going to look for that bigger move up, we were talking about how you really had to be trading against the technical analysis and Market Cypher B, which obviously was calling for that continuation down based off that money flow. Money flow always indicates the longer term trend. So when you see that money flow dropping into the red, even if you get those pumps to the upside, oftentimes they are just to put in lower highs before continuing back down to lower prices. And here is that short position, and I've shown this a ton of times on the live stream. It was up about $2,000 at the time. I had $600 locked in, but now we are up about $29,000, almost $3,000 unrealized here as this short continues to play out. And money flow very rarely lies, guys. This was a big reason why I was continuing to hold this short position, because we knew even if we got little rips to the upside with that money flow coming out, there was somewhat of a high probability that if we got stuck under that POC, money flow continued out, we would see that next drop to the downside, and we are now finally seeing that happen. I'm going to go ahead and hide that short position and talk about the key levels we have down underneath us right now, because we are, as you can see, approaching one of our blue boxes, which are going to be levels of support. So as we got stuck under this POC, we were tapping that golden pocket, tapping that golden pocket, tapping that golden pocket. And as you guys know, oftentimes the more times you tap a level, the weaker it gets and the more likely it is to break. And we have finally seen that break of that golden pocket and a drop down to our next key level here, which is going to be that 786 Fibonacci retracement, and that is where we're getting a little bit of support right now. Now, I do want to talk about some of the liquidity as well, but as you guys can see here, obviously the daily money flow is continuing into the red. We also had our 2-day green dot quickly invalidated by another red dot printing here immediately after confirming the green dot, which I like to call a VWAP flop, and this is typically not a great sign. This shows me that buyers tried to push price up, but the sellers came right in and stepped directly on their heads, pushing price back to the downside. But again, guys, if I can stress anything here, especially after this 2 weeks of consolidation, patience is key in this market. I was not panic closing my short position as we were getting these pumps to the upside, because we knew we were at key resistance. And although we could have flipped this to support and got a rip to the upside, we had our stop losses in profit. So even if we got stopped out, we would have still made some money and we could have looked for a new long position. But the money flow, as always, very rarely lies, and we got that continuation to the downside, giving us that continuation and extra profit on that short position. Now the question is, how low can we go? Should I be worried, Frankie? Is this the end of the bull market? Well, at the end of the day, guys, we are simply still just consolidating within our macro range. This does not mean that we cannot break down further. I'm going to talk about some of the lower levels we have beneath us, but as of right now, guys, on the lower time frames, we are coming down to this 786. So this is an area where I am going to be looking for bounces with the premium Discord to see if we could catch a long position if we are going to get a bounce to the upside. Another thing to note here is we have a lot of shorts opening up here at the low, which could add liquidity above. So if we do get that bounce bounce to the upside, those shorts could wind up getting stopped out, giving us a little squeeze to the upside. So we are going to be looking for that long down here in the premium Discord as we have come down to tap that 786. But that's just for the trades. I want to talk a little bit longer time frame here. If we come up to the 4-hour, guys, and we are unable to hold this 786 Fibonacci retracement, this is kind of our last level of defense before potentially getting that bigger drop down to fill this range down to the value area low, which currently sits at about $92,000. Now, like I said, this is a zone of support, so if we do not get the long setup down here at the 786, we will still be looking for longs all within this zone if we can get the confirmations, because as you know, there is a lot of fear in the market right now, and we did just get a historic liquidation event that came in here, liquidating tons and tons of people who were long in the market. And oftentimes, guys, these do actually mark significant lows in the market. You can see down here we had a massive liquidation event. We got a snap back to the upside, and then we started kind of dribbling down here a little bit to fill a part of these liquidations before kind of just bing-bonging around and then continuing to the upside, flipping this key anchored VWAP to support and setting us up for our next leg to the upside. Now, as I said, the daily money flow coming out is a longer-term bearish continuation signal, so we do have to be careful with that, but I am not getting overly bearish here as we are tapping into support. Now, if we do come below this value area and we wind up getting rejected out of this range, guys, we honestly do not have a ton of support down here, and I've shown this by looking at the visible range volume profile on my live streams, and I think this gives a nice visual aid to what we're looking at here. If we do wind up losing this value area low and we start dropping to the downside here, guys, this wick down here at about $89,000 does have a little bit of liquidity sitting down there, so I will be looking for potential sweeps of liquidity down at this level. And again, just to mark this level out for you guys, this is coming in at about $89,060. But one thing I do want to point out for the longer term, when we're just looking at our volume here, we know that the high volume nodes do tend to act as a magnet for price, and you can see most of our volume is sitting up here within our range, and obviously price has been clinging there, which has built up this high volume node. But once we start losing this high volume node, the volume starts to fall off very aggressively, leading down to some lower levels on Bitcoin, dropping us down into the higher 80,000s, which is not something anybody wants to see on Bitcoin right now. Trust me, I am in that camp as well. I want this thing to go up as much as anybody, even though I am short from 102K, and I will make a decent amount of money if we get that drop. I do want to point out this gap in volume. If we start losing this wick down here at about 89,000, we have one more level sitting down here on the daily, and you guys can see I have this labeled as, oh my God, please bounce, because this is our last line of defense, guys, before we come and approach our overall range low, sitting at about $85,000, and we do have a lot of liquidity sitting down here, and if we start breaking that level, we may start to see a lot of these liquidation wicks and a potentially scary drop to the downside. Not only do we have the gap in volume, which really doesn't start picking up until we start getting down here towards our next key levels of support, where we have 2 daily naked points of controls and a golden pocket, as well as an anchored VWAP, but the ride down there, if we do see it, could get very scary because we do have liquidity sitting below, giving us fuel for that fast drop to the downside on top of the low volume gap. And oftentimes, guys, just like the price clings to the high volume nodes, the low volume gaps typically don't give us much support, and we oftentimes say quick moves up oftentimes can lead to quick moves down, and this would lead us right into our next area of key support, sitting between about, I would call it about $84,000 to about $80,000, dropping us all the way back down here to this daily naked point of control, sitting right down here. So if we do wind up losing this range, guys, I'm not calling for a guaranteed drop down to these levels, but I do just want you guys to be aware of the lack of volume we have down here and the liquidity, which again will add fuel to that drop to the downside. So if we see this bigger drop down, this is going to get very scary, but at the end of the day, if we do come down here and get all these liquidations taken, we do have these key levels of support where I will be looking for new long positions, as this could be a big level to put in a macro higher low on the higher time frames before another massive move up. So that is kind of the worst case scenario in my opinion, guys. If we do wind up losing this range low, I will be looking for the bigger drop down here. And, you know, honorable mention, we do have that daily sitting here, which we could potentially hold. So we will be assessing price as we approach these levels, but key levels for you guys to be paying attention to: 89,000, we have liquidity below, which could potentially give us that sweep of liquidity and a potential quick drop down, as that's typically what we see when liquidations are taken, because when you're in a long position, if you get stopped out or liquidated, it does add that market sell pressure, which does give you those quick liquidation wicks, very similar to what we saw happen down here. A lot of people are panicking, but we know we're at key support, and what happens? You do get that bounce back to the upside. So right now, first zone of support, we're looking at 786 sitting at about 93.5, all the way down to the value area low at 92K. We'll see if we can come down, play around with these levels, see if we can catch a long position there. If not, the volume falls off pretty heavily. We're looking down towards that daily, and if we lose that, I'm going to be looking at that potential worst case scenario to play out. But hopefully, guys, hopefully we could come down to this range low, get some long confirmations, and then send this thing back up to higher prices. Just remember, I know there's a lot of fear out there, guys, but oftentimes when there is max pain and max fear, these are very common signs for at least some kind of a significant bottom to come in. So try not to let that fear get into your head. Understand the key levels you have beneath you. And to be honest, we don't really have much below us. I would say there's much more resistance above than there is support down below until we wind up getting down to these bigger levels in the 80,000s. But we'll see how price develops here, guys, and I will keep you updated every step of the way. To be honest, I'm just happy that we got a move here, as I was getting sick of that 2 weeks of sideways price action, and that short is continuing to pay us out. So, guys, with all that being said, that's all the time I got for today's video. Hopefully this helps you guys out. Go mark those levels on your chart, sit on your hands, and wait for those bullish confirmations to see if we can get those bounces, and hopefully having these levels on your chart could give you a little bit of peace of mind, so you're not panicking on these drops to the downside. You could at least know why we're getting those bigger drops, whether it's because of those liquidations or those low volume gaps. So, until next time, guys, that's all I got for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Frankie Candles out.
Go at the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run it up. Yeah, you know, maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Hey, on the road, here we go, here we go. Yeah, we winning by a landslide.